People rarely, if ever, change their opinion during an argument, and that is especially true if they're angry, and unfortunately, that is fairly common when it comes to property management.
Hello, my name is Philip Sirius. This is my brother Andrew Sirius. We've been investing in real estate and doing property management for close to 12 years now. So we've dealt with a lot of people just angry in general at us or in other situations. We've learned a few things. We want to share those with you guys. Now, there is just a general tension you will deal with if you are investing in real estate or choose to be a property manager of any kind. It's inherent to the profession.
It's true of any economic transaction where there's two sides, but it's even more so with property management because this is the most expensive thing that people have to pay. The only thing more expensive is a mortgage, but if they have a mortgage, they generally don't pay rent.
So I don't think a lot of landlords realize that. It's also a very intimate space and an intimate thing. Yeah, it's a very important thing to people, so it makes sense. And on the landlord side, this is a lot of people's income. They need that money to continue their business or to even set up their own household. So it's a very important thing to people, and it's going to create a lot of high emotions, and it's difficult. There are some ways to do this properly and some ways to do it very improperly. The first thing to do, honestly, is to screen your residents. We'll talk about that in another video. The most important thing to do once you have screened the resident and you are signing a lease with them is to create the expectations of living in this rental property. That is the number one thing to do.
Proper expectations.
So what we do is whenever somebody rents from us, we actually sit them down for an entire hour and go over the lease point by point with all of the clauses in the lease, all of the rules, and create all of the expectations. If we don't allow pets, we tell them, or they didn't apply or are planning on living with pets, we tell them exactly what will happen if we find a pet on the premises, so that if they're trying to get away with something or they do something that's not allowed, we've already told them exactly what is going to happen, and then it's our job once that happens to just follow through on that expectation.
You're nipping potential disputes in the bud, and that's like the best way to have a dispute with a tenant or anyone is to not have it by setting proper expectations.
Most people,
and being reasonable.
True. Most people don't want to break your rules, but if they don't know what they are, most people are not going to read the lease on their own. And so they're just going to live normally and not realize, I wasn't allowed to paint the house. No one told me that. It's in your lease. They didn't read the lease.
Never expect them to read it. It's like expecting somebody to read the terms of service that they get, the documents they get before signing up for a new app. Or that nobody does it.
Why? What did the terms and conditions for the last update say? I don't know. I didn't read them. You didn't read them?
Yeah, and make sure you basically have told them exactly what's going to happen in all of these common or not so common situations, so that when it happens, you've already explained to them the outcome and so that they're ready for it. So the first thing to do, set expectations. The second thing to do is to set expectation. This is like Fight Club. It is the most important part of it. Get the expectations figured out.
Go through some of those points again on lease renewals. Keep it going.
Now, this isn't going to prevent all the problems. There's people are still going to not be able to pay rent or just not pay rent, damage the property, break a rule you have, or break a clause of lease, or break the law or something like that. This is going to happen. People will rarely blame themselves for situations, even if it is their fault.
Everyone is the hero of their own story.
That is true. So it will never be their fault why they didn't pay rent. And sometimes it actually isn't. Sometimes it actually is. It's not really our job to judge that. Our job is to deal with it. But when something goes wrong, you still need to deal with them, even if they're very mad at you. And the way to do that is to put yourself on their team. And the only way to do that is you have to have a bad guy. There has to be something evil out there that is causing this problem and making this person super mad.
It can't be you.
Because they're going to make it you if you don't find someone else.
Natural psychology is every problem has an enemy. Every problem has a cause. I mean, even people back in the day would blame, bad weather on like demons and whatever.
I'm here at Barry Island Beach and there's no signs of sun.
There's always something bad. And so if they're going into this relationship where you're the property manager, you're the owner, they're paying you rent, you are the bad guy. If something is wrong, even if it's their fault and they're not paying rent because whatever they just stopped showing up to work or whatever, you're still going to be to blame.
Because you're the one evicting them, right?
So we need to flip the script. Normally we have an adversarial relationship where we're on the opposite side of the table. We want to put ourselves on the same side of the table, and we are fighting together against a common enemy.
Quick little tip. physically, if you are in the same room with someone like this, actually sit on the same side of the table. And it actually does help. But anyways,
there's a lot of psychological points that we should probably go over. One is, if they're going to be screaming, do not raise your voice back at them.
That is true too.
And also, slow your speech down. Speak slowly but firmly, and speak calmly. People will mirror other people's behavior, their speech. It's something called social proof. And if you're around somebody and they're talking really fast, and I'm going like this, like, you know, I notice I listen to Audible books at 2 times at 2 speed, and I have noticed that I now speak a lot faster than I used to. People will generally, they will mirror the other person. So if they start off mad and you stay calm, and if they're talking really fast and you just talk slow, they will start to move towards your position. So that's very important to understand. Just let them get some steam out for a little bit. Well, do not match their tone.
This is one trick that I have the luxury of doing that not everybody does. But, you know, we have a receptionist here who answers the phone, and they'll tell me someone is very angry about situation X or situation Y. And I go, okay, great. Let them know I call them in about 30 minutes or so. And then I always do call them back. I don't ignore the phone call, but the reason I don't take the call right then is they're heated up and angry. If I wait, call them back in 30, 45 minutes, their emotional state has completely changed since that original anger, and I can talk to them in a calm way.
And you can even say, like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to call you back in a little bit because this is just not being productive. I apologize. I will get back to you shortly. So just remember those psychological. It's very simple. Just stay calm. Don't get heated with them. Don't say anything mean to them. Don't accuse them of anything. You know, don't be accusatory. And if it's too much, delay the process a little bit. So those are just a couple quick things. Then now we get into the point of how we frame this, and that's having an enemies list.
So you want to put yourself on the same side, but you have to make something else what's causing the problem. Yeah. Here are some of the ones I typically use is just what is in the lease. I can't change what's in the lease. This is what we've agreed to. This is the expectation I created. If you are the property manager or the owner, we have that kind of at the bottom with policies, or the owner's the problem. It's like, I'm not getting fired over going against the lease for you. I have to follow the lease. What else can we do in this situation?
The company policy.
Sometimes it's the law, and even during our lease signings, there are a couple things that are not in our lease that are in Missouri or Kansas law that I go over with the residents because they might not know the law. I'm not going to break the law to fix your situation or something like that. Or fair housing law is a great one to use.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes with the lease in general. Because as far as, like, if you are making exceptions outside of the parameters of your own lease with one tenant, you kind of have like to be treating everyone the same and not discriminating against anyone. Yeah. You basically have to do it for everyone. Yeah. So if you're saying, well, you don't have to pay rent, everybody else has to pay rent.
Or even the late fee. Sometimes it's just a late fee. If you don't make one person pay the late fee because they're yelling at you, but you make everybody else pay it, that's discrimination on a factual sense, and you're breaking the law.
You can help yourself on a little bit of a tangent here with things like that by having just a sort of a process for it. It doesn't have to be super arduous, but like if you want to dispute a late fee, you have to submit in writing an explanation. 2/3 of people don't even end up doing it, and then you can usually just reject it based on your criteria. So like that kind of thing is an extra step for situations like that.
Well, and what I do, honestly, to kind of prevent these situations with the lease signing, I say once the late fee is on your account, there is no way for us to get this late fee off of your account, so just make sure it doesn't show up in the first place. Then they yell at me because of a late fee for some reason. Say, I told you, I can't get this off once it's there. We have to deal with this beforehand. So another one is the past. Use the past of something like a sewer line broken, ruined Christmas for them or something like that.
What's done is done.
Yeah, you can't fix what happened in the past, and you're on their team to resolve the situation moving forward, but you can't do anything about what happened. That's maybe one of the weaker ones, but it honestly does work for a lot of people. People realize you can't change it, and so you're on their team trying to fix it now, and the enemy is what happened in the past. We can both be mad about that, but we can't do anything now.
And then I think the major point here, and this is one of the things that you brought to this way of thinking, is what exactly is the resolution you're seeking? Yeah. And it's like, are you seeking the perfect? No. Yeah. You're seeking the best, but I think what is the best? That's the key thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can't fix the sewer line break on Christmas.
Well, you can't,
you can fix it going forward.
You can't fix it for previous time.
Yeah. If they can't pay rent and they're going to get evicted or something, you can't just say, well, I'm not going to charge you rent. That might be the best outcome or the one they're fighting for, but you can say, okay, what are your options? You can move in with your sister. You can go find a cheaper place and move out in the next 2 weeks. You can just get evicted and get an eviction on your background, which probably isn't the best.
We could do a cash for keys, perhaps, or we do that. That's a separate video. But
what you do is you line up all the possible outcomes that are not good, and you pick the best not good outcome rather than this dream of I'm not going to get evicted.
To
and I'm
defeat the enemy on this list as you work together.
Exactly.
But the thing is, you're looking for the best outcome given the situation based on your lease, your rules, your policies, all of those things. You're not looking for their ideal outcome. In the same way, you're not looking for your ideal outcome, which is for them to pay 10 times the rent just for no reason. You're looking for the best solution that is available given those constraints.
And then always communicate everything. This is a really big thing that people get frustrated with, that they just don't feel like they're being talked to. They don't know what's going on. And sometimes you don't have answers. And that doesn't mean you don't have to communicate. One of my tricks that I use is someone wants something figured out. They want the answer right now. And I say, I don't have it. I can't provide it to you. But what I do is I say, I will call you by this time tomorrow. I might not have an answer yet, but I will call you just to tell you I still don't have an answer, but I'm still working on this, and you still matter, and the situation is still important. Because if you just don't talk to them for 3 or 4 days, they're just going to get more fed up that you're ignoring them and not doing anything.
People tend, this is definitely true with maintenance, even more, just as much. People are more upset most of the time with being ignored or not considered or not cared about than just the problem. They understand that problems happen. So it's like being on top of it, communicating consistently, and being a person of your word. That is absolutely essential.
And that is being on their team, is saying, I don't have an answer, but I'm going to tell you I still don't have an answer and be honest with you to try to resolve the situation rather than, well, I'm not going to tell you anything until I have a solution. And that's uncomfortable to do. People don't like entering a conversation without all the answers. And you might have to listen to them whine for another 20 minutes or something.
If you set expectations that you might not have any answer, that makes it easier too.
And you might have to listen to whine all over again, but you know what? It helps the situation stay positive over the course of the issue.
And I think the last point is sometimes you did do something wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes, or it's egregious, like a sewer line backup on Christmas, or maybe it's not you didn't do anything wrong. It just happened. Things happen. But in those cases, you want to do right by your tenant. You want them to renew their lease. You want them to be happy. You don't want them to be.
Or also, you didn't fulfill your obligations on side lease. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen.
Things go sideways sometimes. Yeah. The way we like to do it is with gift cards. One of the things we ask when people sign leases, what is your favorite restaurant or whatever? We give them some options. And if such a thing happens, we give them a gift card for this.
So like, hey, we gave you a violation on accident, or I'm not coming up with a good example off the top of my head, but
some landlords and property managers like to give rent discounts. I'd say in extreme cases that could be considered, but generally speaking, I'd avoid that. You don't want that to be a topic of discussion of how much money they're paying. So it's like I'd only do that in extreme cases.
But make the situation right. If you made the mistake, find a way to make the situation right. But also, this goes back to the expectation things. Be very careful about making promises of what you can accomplish, because if you say we'll get this maintenance issue finished by the end of the week, the next time you talk to them, they're going to say, I heard you were going to get it finished by tomorrow. It's always going to end up being the promise you made is going to become more in people's mind. And so just don't make promises for the most part.
I'd say the two promises you can make is we are going to address this.
Yes, and I'm going to communicate with you.
I'm going to communicate with you.
Those are the things to do. And then if you feel uncomfortable enforcing some of the rules and stuff you put in the lease, don't put them in your lease. Put rules in your lease you're going to enforce, you're comfortable enforcing. Set them up well so you don't overly punish people who don't pay rent on time. Give them outs.
Your lease is not for bluffing. These are the rules.
We give payment plans, one payment plan per 12 months for a lease, and we explain that during our lease signing. It's part of our rules because we know amazing residents have a hiccup in their lives, and we want an out for those people to continue to be good residents with us. Some people take slight advantage of it, but overall the rule works in general, and so we're comfortable enforcing our rules. If you're uncomfortable enforcing the rule, don't have it, and make it so you have good rules in the first place.
Absolutely. So, the key thing is setting expectations and being on tenant's side as you work to defeat the enemy. But the other key thing is getting the right tenants in the first place, and the best way to do that is through proper screening. And if you want to know how to do that, check this video out right here. Also subscribe. But check the video out and subscribe. Do both. You
like the video. Do all this stuff.
You pick the order.